So we will start with showing you a very short video. I think it's 2 minutes, and then I have a few questions, but of course we will open the floor for questions. So let's see the video first on how the tool works.
Technological innovation and digitalisation enable comprehensive and transformative change. In order to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, harnessing the potential of innovative technologies will be crucial. Innovation cycles are shortening, and the complexity of technology innovations is increasing tremendously. In order to utilise the growing potential of innovative technologies for sustainable development, a comprehensive systematic analysis of their technological maturity and their potential sustainability impact is essential. Technology innovations can be key factors for social, economic and organisational change worldwide. To support the effective and strategic use of emerging technologies for sustainable development, GIZ has created the first technology radar focusing on the potential of innovative technologies for sustainable development. GIZ's techDetector provides a comprehensive analysis of the sustainability impact and readiness level of 100 carefully selected technologies which have been extensively analysed using NASA's TRL methodology. Each technology is represented by a circle in the radar. Its appearance and positioning provide a wealth of information at a glance. Technologies can be filtered by readiness level or easily identified by their positioning as one of 4 readiness categories. Technologies can also be filtered by sustainability impact, which is visible through the shade around a technology's circle icon. The larger the shade, the higher the impact. Sustainability impact is based on crowdsourced metrics covering all 3 sustainability dimensions as well as cross-cutting areas. Users can target specific and relevant technologies in the filter section. For instance, if you work in social development and you want to understand what technologies are impactful in your field, simply highlight your sector and it will only show relevant technologies, indicated by yellow circles here. The order function sorts the radar, for instance, by impact, from least to most impactful. Finally, selecting a technology reveals a comprehensive analysis. techDetector bridges the gap between the development community and the tech industry and acts as a crucial catalyst for reaching the Sustainable Development Goals. Find out more and test the techDetector at techdetector.giz.de.
Okay, it's a great overview. I think it gives a nice understanding of what it is about. Before we go more into detail, I wanted to ask you what was the idea behind the tool? Why did you decide to create it?
Yeah, so we were not just lazy to not giving a presentation. So, yeah, I think it's a lot referring to what Mr. Bayer actually said at the beginning, and since it was mainly his idea and he kind of like pushed us to get into it, it's on the one hand like at the core of our understanding of sustainable development and development corporations that we understand ourselves also like as technical corporations. So this is really like going back to the history of GIZ and what we think is like impactful. And on the other hand, we see like a shortening of innovation cycles, while at the same time the complexity of technology innovations increase. So to kind of like approach this challenge, we kind of like started our way to find a way of like how can we actually assess technologies and not only focus on like the economic impact, because that's what most ratings do. They focus like on the potential economic impact of a certain technology. But we are working in very sensitive contexts, so we need to kind of like be aware of like the unintended consequences, as Michelle said, and also like be aware of like the readiness level and the local context. So this was like the starting point for us, and that's also like important to the question that Dorothy raised. So what about like the local context and readiness of the local level? This is something where we also feel that there's still like the human factor. This is something that we will not solve with a tool like this, and hopefully never will. But this is something that we kind of like see in combination. So this is like a guide and like a tool that's like a first step, and that should like inspire and get like more in the idea of like at an early stage get involved into new technologies and build up like knowledge and an understanding and hopefully a network, and not right away like implement or buy a certain technology. That's not like the idea behind it.
And so maybe you can add something about what is different in this tool in comparison to other tools. What does it bring more than others?
Yeah, like Insa and also Michelle said before, we added this component of the sustainability impact. What impact does or could one technology actually have on the dimensions of sustainability? And we developed this metrics. It's actually an online survey that all of you can, if you want to, fill out at the techDetector booth. It covers all 3 dimensions of sustainability, and also covers something that we call cross-cutting issues, because we feel like it's not all covered in those 3 dimensions. And that's how we rated all of the technologies that are included. So we don't only say like how ready are they in a technology readiness cycle, but also what positive or also negative impact could every technology have, like in both ways, and then also in all of those dimensions of sustainability. Yeah.
I think what's really interesting is that you built a tool inside GIZ that is not only like the aim is not only to use it for people inside GIZ. So that's really interesting. Do you already have concrete examples or ideas on how people inside and outside GIZ will be using it? What are the outcomes that you're expecting or hoping for?
Yeah, that's like a lot of hopes and wishes, but yeah, numerous. Like there's on the one hand, of course, the idea to kind of like start a discussion, like get more into detail and actually build this discussion on like a reliable argument. So don't run after certain heights that you just read in newspapers, because probably if it's in a newspaper, it's already too late. So to really get like early on, so usually in what we realized, like in the development world, we often focus on technologies for the next couple of years, like 1, 2, 3 years, like that's kind of like the horizon we look at. But we should look at like 5 to 10 years at least, better 15 years, to really like start building knowledge and the network early on. So the understanding of our tool is not that you look into the tool and just pick one technology and implement it like together with your partner in a certain, in a country. That's not the idea. The idea is to have an understanding why, or maybe also why you don't move right now with this technology, because maybe the maturity level is not perfect. But that's also the human factor. So we really think like this tool needs to be used by people who are like on the ground, who are involved in the local context. And then it could be like a great guide through like the variety of like technology innovations.
But it's also, I think the most important thing is that this tool gives us, and I mean all of us, an inspiration, and also brings us together like it does today, that we're here to discuss those things. And of course, this tool is only the starting point, and now the actual work starts, which means using it, discussing it, feeding it with more information, and working together on this, and that's where we're heading with it. So
that's a tool that's meant to evolve, right? It's not set in stone. So can you explain maybe how is it going to evolve? How can people embrace it and use it?
It's evolving already, and that's like also the beauty of having such an adaptable tool, and that's like really props to Envisioning for building such a platform. We are already building like specific, we call it like sectoral layers. So if you look at the existing radar, we have like a selection of 100 technologies covering all different areas we are active in as GIZ. But if you narrow it down, it means like if you're, I don't know, like for instance, like a water expert, you only have like 3 to 5 technologies from the water sector. So of course that's like very limited. But what we are building is that we, with the existing methodology, we can zoom in. And that's what our colleagues from the water sector are now doing. They are kind of creating their own layer, which means like you can zoom in into one specific sector, and then you have like another 50 to 60 technologies only from this sector. And we are doing the same like for water and waste. We do it for mobility, we do it for agriculture. We actually also try to narrow down the question of like the local context, because we are building a radar for our Moroccan colleagues, and together also like with this group. Some of them are here, so props to that. And also the question of like cross-cutting gender is something that's really close to our heart, and something that we feel like should be yeah, more highlighted in the discussion on emerging technologies. So we also have a team who's currently working on like a gender metrics to kind of like see the potential impact on gender from emerging technologies. So this is kind of like what we're doing. And of course, if you think like at all the sectors we're working in and all the countries we are busy in, so there's still like a lot to do. So that's it.
And how will you make sure that the tools stay up to date? Is it a concern? Is it something that you've been working on with like technology evolving all the time?
Well, on the one hand, of course, we have Envisioning, who have their database, and we're not the only ones working with them. So every time somebody works with Envisioning and updates something in the database, it will be updated automatically in all the radars, which is very nice. And is at least like touching this open source thought of just like profiting all from one another. So of course all the others profit from us that are like every time we touch one technology it will be updated. And the other thing is that we're what Insa just explained, working in all of those sectors. So of course that will help us to just by working on it constantly and deepening it and zooming into different sectors, that will help us to keep it alive. And then it's like an adaptive tool, so we can just go into it and change it and work on it. And
people actually contact you about technologies they know and to add it to their radar?
Yes, of course. So not all at once, please. So we are still like a small team, but we're building it up, hopefully. Yeah, but definitely. So this is a tool where we actually like want to get involved. So we kind of like internally launched it within GIZ, so like very softly. But now this is like the step to actually like step outside to the open. So we really would like to get in touch. We will also cover for each technology like organizations active in the field. So something like this could make it like even more useful, that you don't only like see like the technology readiness level and the sources behind the technologies, but also maybe like institutions who are working with one specific technology. So I think, of course, like this is a tool that lives from interaction, and hopefully, yeah, we will kind of like increase also like our partnerships through a tool like this. Yes.
Great. So is there already some question in the audience about the tool? So I have a first question on the third row here, and then I think there was someone also in the back of the room after. Yes, please say your name and your organization.
Sure. My name is Yannick Horne. I'm working on a startup together with the Border Step Institute here in Berlin. And we are focusing on impact measurement for startups on an early stage. So I'm curious to learn in what kind of ways you're planning to provide or give access to the data. Is there something like an API or something? How could you get kind of raw data to work with them in other contexts to really increase the benefit of it?
So the tool is open accessible. The database behind it is actually like the ownership is with Envisioning, and it's planned to be open source pretty soon, but it's still like a little bit of like work in progress. So of course, like the questions regarding like the technical connections through API or something, just get in touch with our Envisioning colleagues. Everything that we do is like open accessible. So of course you are like able to use it if we give you the source code. I'm not really sure about this. Yeah.
There was another question on in the back.
My name is.
Oh. I don't know.
My name is Annika Krammer. I work with Adelphi here in Berlin, and over the past 15 years I've worked a lot in technology transfer and looking at legal, policy, institutional frameworks for water management. And what I learned is that the impact of a technology very much depends on the governance framework where it's implemented, or whether it's transferable from one place to another. So does your instrument provide to highlight those framework conditions that need to be in place to let the technology have the impact that it's envisioned?
It does not at the moment, as like Michelle tried to explain a bit earlier. It's of course, if we do this like for every sector there is, for every country there is, for every context there is, and then also like for urban but also rural context, this is just like an explanational problem. But we don't see us at the end of this path, which means that we're just like starting here now today. And we're kind of quite aware of those things, so we're just discussing and seeing where this could lead. we're testing this Moroccan platform, for example, or this Moroccan layer, just to see how can this work in a certain country context. What does this mean for local regulations? What does this mean for local partners, for tech companies within the countries or in the regions? But there we are in the process of exploring those things.
But just to add on this, that was like an early on question that we had. If you assess technologies, you kind of like need to decide early on, like one way or the other. So for instance, if you look at a 3D printer, you need to decide, like, do you want to see like all possible outcomes? And if you do that, you will never have like a methodology that's like reliable, because of course you can print weapons at a large scale, easy on, very cheap, and at the same time like health products. So what way do you want to decide? Is it a good tool? Is it like sustainable? Is it useful? Is it dangerous? So what we did is that we, in our methodology, decided early on to say, what's the best possible outcome for this technology? And that's the approach. So we will not say that, and that's also like an approach that we use like in development cooperation in our safeguards and gender matrix and so on. So we kind of need to see how could it best possibly get like on the ground in the field. And of course, there's still like the human factor. So I expect not anyone like to click on a buy button in the radar and say like, oh, I'm just buying this looks so good. So there's still like a local context. But we don't think that a tool will solve this like at any point, like, and it shouldn't. There should still be like a human factor to decide like on risk and specific safeguards. So definitely, yeah, but that's like a tricky question.
I think there is another question in the back of the room on the right, just behind you, yes. Thank you.
Cameron Burgess from Uncompromise. We need an army of innovations to successfully address the SDGs, and there's obviously tens of millions of them in the world already. GIZ is too, I would say, is too slow and too big to successfully address this problem on its own. So my question is, what is GIZ's intention to radically scale by incorporating innovations in existence in other databases around the world?
Can we hand this question to Mr. Bayer? No, just kidding. Yeah, I think that's like a very, very valid question. I think not only for us as an institution, and that's not like kind of like deflecting, but like I think that's in development cooperation and large governmental organizations, that's an issue. I think that's also what Dorothy said, like we are slow movers. Sometimes it's good to be slow movers because we kind of like don't run, like we are not even able to run too fast after hypes, like we can't, like, but at the same time, yes, we need to kind of like increase our impacts, and we know that we cannot meet the SDGs if we don't use the potential of emerging technologies. We are very aware of this. So this is like very pressing for us. This is not just like a nice looking tool, which is like fun, so we talk about buzzwords. It's definitely not. We are really aware that we kind of like need to rethink how we work.
Thank you. There was another question on the right here, the second row, please. Thank you.
Hi, Uta Meyer-Hahn, GIZ. Mrs. Gordon was talking about procurement and the importance of it. And from what I understand of the techDetector project so far is that it offers avenues towards exploring the technologies for everybody to see. And I was wondering if you've explored the idea of getting into partnerships with any kinds of institutions, public institutions that do procurement, who could voluntarily pledge to sort of include within their procurement practices these avenues or these categories that you are suggesting. So what I'm imagining is that I, as GIZ, for instance, could pledge to include the criteria that you've developed for artificial intelligence or for facial recognition into my procurement requirements, in the sense that I would ask the companies who would make their offers to just address those points, not necessarily to regulate too strongly, but to make sure that what you called unintended consequences, but also maybe not seen benefits, would get addressing in those offers.
Yeah, very, very valid point as well. I think that would be like another project, and something I'm not sure if we want to touch it because it's very painful. But yes, procurement is like a huge issue. I think we are very, very well aware of this, and of course we hope that something like this can be like a small push in the right direction. So that's kind of like in this sense what I would hope for. Yeah.
And we'll take one last question. Yes, I can see on the right over there. Was there anyone else? No. Okay.
On the right. Perfect.
Hi.
Okay. After, yeah. So there is one, and then.
I just took it because it was the last one. If you can have it, it's not that important.
We can have two, I think.
Okay. So you said that you basically crowdsourcing the information, right?
No, just the sustainability impact. So the metrics. We are not crowdsourcing like the information on each technology. This is like done by researchers, and this is like curated content. Like this is not like able that someone is editing within like a technology description.
So because when it comes to sustainability, then are you not afraid to reproduce hypes? Because I remember when I was working on 3D printing, I think 2012. If you would have asked basically anyone, but the people who actually know 3D print, they would told you, "Yo, it's the best ecological technology because you can just print what you need and blah 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 blah." While the people who actually work it were like, let's see how it works out. At the moment, we're producing a lot of rubbish, and even now I'm working on vegan technologies, and everyone's on with clean meat. And I'm totally not seeing the other technologies which are way more promising, while clean meat is like, let's see, 10, 15 years away. So I'm not sure that the sustainability aspect, or how do you think you can make the sustainability aspect work with hypes?
I think there's like two levels to this. So the one is that on the one hand we cannot talk about like 3D printing like in general because it's too broad. So we kind of like need to put it down like in the field. So 3D printing in architecture for reconstruction. And then our methodology is not that you say like, oh, there's like a plus for economic and a minus for ecological or whatsoever. So each dimension has like 3 specific questions. So for instance, for the ecological, we don't only look at like impact on like climate changes, but also like on impact on biodiversity. So we kind of like try to cover the whole range. So if you get like this much into detail, it's not that easy to kind of like have an easy answer. So the questionnaires really push you to really think about like, okay, if you think about like, if this technology is used in the best possible way, what's the potential impact? And still, there might be like a negative impact in one of the dimensions, specifically in social, but we are also covering like transparency, accessibility. So if a technology is very expensive and not like, like the variety of people in the audience cannot like get in touch with it because it's too pricey, then that's an issue for us, like from a sustainable perspective. So we kind of think that the methodology behind the sustainability is very like narrowed down to specific questions, and it's not an easy answer.
And within, just to add on that, within the radar where you can see like which impact could this actually have, you can see if the answers were very widespread. So you will just see like 30% said, okay, this has a low positive impact, and it's only 10% who said it has a high positive impact, but also 10% said it has a negative impact. So you will just see how distributed it is, and you can actually see if people are agreeing or if the answers are just far away from each other, and that will it will not take the decision from you. You will have to make it if you are the one thinking about technologies and the usage of it. It will just help you to see what did other people think about this.
And we didn't ask the 3D printers first. We asked like the GIZ experts first on sustainability. So I hope they don't have such a bias towards like a certain technology. Yeah. But now it's open. So.
Yes.
One last question.
I just wanted to say that having looked at it, I found it to be a very valuable tool. And even without releasing the source code, the fact that the methodology is transparent will help people to think about these issues in more depth. I want to suggest that it could come with a knowledge management component that doesn't necessarily have to be directly linked to the to the graphic and the software, but a better knowledge management within GIZ, where staff are really encouraged to give their feedback on their experience of the implementation of technologies. And then that can be looked at by your researchers, and you can see how to incorporate it. Thanks.
this is also something that we're working on, linking the techDetector, and this will only be accessible for people that have access to the internal platforms, but that those things are actually linked to each other, so we can see if one of those technologies actually being implemented somewhere. We will be linked to the internal knowledge management platform that that shows those details. Yes.
Thank you. I think that was a very important conclusion. So you'll have more time to ask them questions later this evening. Please give a round of applause to Insa Illgen Gitta Sender. Thank you.